If you really want to understand us human beings, a fantastic place to start is with our closest animal relatives, the primates. So today, we're going to take a journey through their incredible, diverse world to see what they can tell us about our own story, our own behavior, and really our place in the world. Okay, let's jump right in. For as long as we can remember, we've used primates as a kind of mirror. Sometimes what we see staring back is this monstrous version of ourselves, right? Like the original King Kong, this terrifying brute that kind of embodies all our deepest fears. But other times we see something totally different, a more innocent, almost empathetic reflection, like in the modern version where Kong becomes a hero. We tend to see what we want to see, either the worst parts of ourselves or maybe the best. And there's actually a word for this tendency, anthropomorphism. It's this trap we fall into of just projecting all our own human baggage, our feelings, our motivations, onto other animals. But to really, truly get primates, we have to try and step back from that. We have to see them for what they actually are, not just as simple reflections of us. So how do we do that? How do we move past our own biases? Well, that's where the science comes in. To make sense of the entire primate family, from the teeniest lemur to the most powerful gorilla, biologists have been mapping out their family tree. Let's take a look at how they put it all together. Now, there are basically two ways you can slice this. The old school method, called grades, lumps animals together based on how they look or act. But the modern way, clades, is all about family. It's about shared ancestry using genetics and inherited traits to build a true evolutionary family tree. And yeah, that's the approach we're going to use today. So, the very first massive branch on that tree splits the entire primate order into two major groups. On one side, you've got the strepsirrhines, and on the other, you have the haplorhines. Let's go meet them. First up, let's meet the strepsirrhines. A key feature that really ties them all together is something called a rhinarium. That's the wet, leathery patch of skin on their nose. Just like a dog's nose. It's a trait they held onto from more ancient mammal ancestors. And the most famous strepsirrhines have to be the lemurs. Now, what's so cool about lemurs is that they're basically a story of pure geographic luck. You can only find them on the island of Madagascar. See, their ancestors drifted over there millions of years ago, and that isolation was a total game changer. It protected them from all the competition from the monkeys and apes that were evolving back on mainland Africa, which let them flourish into all these amazing different forms. All right, let's hop over to the other huge branch of the family. And this is our branch, the haplorhines, or the dry-nosed primates. This group covers pretty much everything else, from little tarsiers to monkeys, apes, and yep, us too. No wet nose for us. Our upper lip isn't attached to our gums. The first little group to branch off within the haplorhines are the tarsiers. I mean, just look at those eyes. They're incredible nocturnal hunters, and get this, they're fully carnivorous, eating insects, birds, even snakes. For a long time, scientists grouped them with lemurs, but modern genetics shows they're actually more closely related to monkeys and apes. They're this fascinating little bridge in the whole primate story. Okay, so after the tarsiers split off, the family tree splits again. And this time, it divides the monkeys into two massive groups based completely on geography. You've got the New World monkeys over in Central and South America, and the Old World monkeys over in Africa and Asia. And this diagram just lays out the differences so clearly. New World monkeys, that's the skull on top, they have these broad, flat noses with nostrils that point out to the sides. They also have an extra premolar tooth. But the Old World monkeys, on the bottom, have nostrils that point downward, kind of like ours, and they've lost that extra premolar. You can also see a really key difference in action here. On the left, that's a New World spider monkey, and it has a prehensile tail. That means it can actually grasp things with it. It's like a fifth limb, which is super useful in the trees. Now here's the crucial part. No Old World monkey, like that langur on the right, has one. So, simple rule, if you ever see a monkey swinging by its tail, you know for a fact you're looking at a New World primate. And finally, we've made it. We're at our own little corner of the family tree, the superfamily Hominoidea. You probably know them better as the apes. This is the group that doesn't have tails at all, and it includes some of the biggest and most socially complex primates out there. First up are the so-called lesser apes, the gibbons of Southeast Asia. And these guys are the absolute acrobats of the primate world. They're famous for this incredible way of swinging through the trees, which is called brachiation. They're also pretty unique among apes because they form monogamous pairs, and there's really no size difference between the males and females. Next are the great apes, and we'll start with the wonderfully solitary orangutans. You only find them in the rainforests of Borneo and Sumatra, and they are incredibly intelligent. The bond between a mother and her baby is one of the longest and strongest in the entire primate world. Offspring will stay with their moms for years and years, just learning everything they need to know to survive. Then we have the gorillas, of course, made famous by amazing researchers like Diane Fossey. They're super social, living in these stable family groups led by a dominant silverback male. And despite that powerful, intimidating look, they are actually gentle herbivores. They spend most of their days just peacefully munching away on plants. And that brings us to our two closest living relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos. Genetically, they're almost identical to each other, and we share more than 98% of our DNA with both of them. But here's the crazy thing. Even though they look so similar, their societies couldn't be more different. And this is where it gets really fascinating. Chimpanzee societies are often pretty tense. They're male-dominated, and they're well known for using tools and organizing these big hunting parties. But bonobo societies, they're more peaceful, they're female-centered, and they famously use sexual behavior to smooth things over and resolve conflicts. Think about that for a second. This single split is so profound because it shows us that even with almost identical genetics, your social structure isn't set in stone. It gives us two totally different paths a society so closely related to our own can take. Looking at this incredible family tree, well, it forces us to confront a pretty tough modern reality, the relationship between us, just one primate species, and all the others. There's a whole new field called ethnoprimatology that studies this exact relationship. It recognizes that we've now entered the Anthropocene, an age defined by humanity's massive impact on the planet. And in this age, basically no primate lives outside of human influence, whether it's from deforestation, climate change, or just direct contact. And that influence has created a crisis. As the primatologist Karen Streer puts it, so many of our primate relatives are now in an urgent race against extinction. All the conservation efforts are helping to buy them precious time, but the future for so many of these amazing species is still dangerously up in the air. So we're left with this really powerful question. These animals, they aren't just some distant cousins. They're a living, breathing link to our own past and a mirror for our present. As they face a future that's being threatened by our actions, we really have to ask ourselves, what does their fate ultimately say about ours?